And welcome back to the Beerly Football Podcast. It's about football, but Beerly. I am your host, Zachary Smith, and of course, joined with me as always is Trevor Scott and Carrie Dempsey. How we doing tonight, fellas?
As I said last week, it's a good week when you get to see a running back throw for 316 yards. So it must be a great week because we had a running back throw for 442, 4 touchdowns. I'm happy. I'm happy
for you, buddy.
How you feeling, Carrie?
I'm good. We didn't lose the Texans. That's all that matters.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently Davis Mills is a MVP candidate now. But,
yeah, sounds like Bill Belichick had his hands full.
He's Jameis Winston 2.0. He went from Nathan Peterman last week to Tom Brady this week, so
okay, whoa. Let's calm down. Let's calm down with those comparisons. All right.
Hey, it was the best rookie performance against Bill Belichick, with the exception of Deshaun Watson. But then last week he was absolutely horrible, so who knows?
What we're saying is Davis Mills, don't have any expectations for him because they'll probably be wrong.
Just let him.
Let him be Davis Mills. Yeah.
Let his neck grow onto you.
Okay. All right. So what we're gonna do now is just. First off, it's a beer podcast.
Come on, Zach.
I'm sorry.
Beerly football.
Oh, it's Beerly Football. What are you guys drinking?
And I decided after last week, whole month of October, Sam Adams Oktoberfest. I gotta enjoy it while I can. I'm going full month of October.
Sounds good. Gary?
I went with my basic Miller Lite. Nothing fancy.
Just you were gonna say my basic milk.
Oh, maybe next time. Can't go wrong with a nice cold glass of milk.
Is it 2% or whole? Is that what you normally drink?
No, you gotta go 2%. That's the way to go.
Okay. Alrighty, so because Carrie brought up milk before, I went out and I found some Dragon's Milk, which is a beer from New Holland Brewing Company. I'll read their little excerpt on the bottle. Throughout the ages, Dragon's Milk has been a term used to describe potent ales and elixirs worthy of celebration, a reward at the end of a journey. Our signature stout carries on that tradition today. Roasted malt delivers notes of coffee and chocolate, married with sweet undertones of vanilla and oak, from a 3-month stay in bourbon barrels to create a truly legendary blend of flavor. So this is very alcoholic. I hope I'm able to, be comprehensive at the end of it. It is 11%.
Is the bottle shaped normally?
Yeah, it's a normal shaped bottle. It's got a cool logo though. It's like a dragon on here. But
okay.
Yeah, but that's what I'm having tonight. And with that taken care of, what we're gonna do is jump straight into everything that happened last week. Trevor brought up something interesting in the opening. Lamar Jackson had a pretty good game. Pretty
good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Pretty good.
He almost lost to the Colts, but it was pretty good.
He saved me in fantasy, and I'm eternally grateful.
So that Colts game was actually that Colts game again. I don't know if you remember last week in the pick'em. That was my upset of the week, and the Colts had several chances to put that game away and just couldn't do it. They just couldn't fucking help me out.
That's what happens when you have probably one of the worst, not the worst, secondaries in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Like Andrew Sandejo, he should not be on an NFL team anymore. What are you doing?
He was far past his prime.
Well, the thing that made me mad was the fact that they couldn't make a freaking kick to save their lives in that game.
Shout out to Mason Crosby and Evan McPherson, dude. Speaking of not making kicks, 5 in a row. That was incredible.
At the end of the game...
At least Hot Rod was injured.
What?
Hot Rod was injured, so you can't blame him too much.
I blame him still. I'm triggered. They missed a kick that would have given them, I think, was it a 12-point? No, not a 12-point, like a 11-point lead. and then they missed a kick at the end of the game that would have won the game. So I'm triggered because that was my upset of the week, and it should have been an upset. But the Ravens are again like a field goal and a half away from being like 1-5.
Every game, I think every game has been one score except for one.
Yeah.
So, there's the Lions game with the Tucker field goal. The Chiefs game went down to the wire. The Raiders game was the same thing. There's been a lot of close games this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I was
want to say,
huh? What'd you say?
I want to say, so far
Wentz
through
had a
5
good game.
weeks, there's so many MVP candidates right now. It's insane.
Yeah.
They really are.
Lamar Jackson having a great year. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, even like Aaron Rodgers. In a normal season, he'd be a candidate, but this year, no. I mean, there's tons of guys having great years.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty hard to pick an MVP at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And up until this past week, I'd probably put Derek Carr in that category too, but he didn't play well.
It's already time for the annual Raiders collapse. This year, it only lasted 3 games, and it only lasted 3 weeks instead of 8.
And they're losing their coach, so
they are. But will that hurt them?
So here's the thing. I don't think John Gruden's a great coach, but anytime you deal with changes inside an organization, it causes a little bit of turmoil. So it's not going to be easy to be able to, try and put out a team every week that's ready to win if, they don't know what's going on, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just too much change going on in that locker room for them to, I think, play consistently this year. So that's definitely going to hurt them.
Coming from a Jags fan, you definitely know what you're talking
about.
I know.
So. Yeah, exactly. Like when your head coach says, "Oh, we didn't run the QB sneak at the half-inch yard line because Trevor Lawrence isn't comfortable with it," and then Trevor Lawrence 5 minutes later saying, "No, I'm comfortable running the QB sneak. We haven't done it in a game yet, but I'm fine doing it." That speaks volumes of the communication skills that is going on in that Jaguars locker room. It's great.
Or how about once again my favorite running back, Mr. James Robinson, had an excellent first half. Forget how many yards it was. He had 100 plus in the first half.
Oh, dude, I don't even want to talk. I was so mad.
Just decides, I'm not going to use him again in the second half. What are you doing, Urban?
Yeah, that was. So here's the thing. So I'm in a $20 a week like NFL pick'em thing, and I picked James Robinson this week because I was like, you know what, they've been giving the ball more, and in the first half he had like 22 points. I was like, heck yeah, he's gonna go off. He's gonna end up with like 35 to 40 points. You know what he ended up with? 25. I was so pissed. Yeah. They didn't do anything with him in the second half. It was annoying. Yeah, anyway, life as a Jags fan.
Gruden
life as a Jags fan. If it's broke, don't fix it.
But that Gruden contract was ended up being a mess. 10 years, $100 million, came back to beat Tom Brady, and what did he do? 9 wins. Was 9 wins his highest he got in his couple of years?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think he's a little outdated. I think long term, just in terms of winning and getting your football team going in the right direction, I think this will be a good move long term for the Raiders. I think they were at their cap with Gruden.
Yeah.
And I never really bought into him and Carr working together. They always seemed to be looking for a different quarterback in the offseason. They kept staying with Carr, but it seemed like it was kind of uneasy between the two.
But the thing is, Derek Carr's a really good quarterback. Like, he is a really good quarterback. I don't know why you would trade him or look a different way instead of just developing the team around him. Like, get yourself a defense. Get yourself an offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting rid of your best defensive player.
Not a great.
Up until 2 weeks ago, he was like one of the best in the league.
Who?
Derek Carr.
He was like top 3 in MVP for the first few weeks.
That's what I'm saying.
But this is what happens to Raiders every year. They start strong and they fall off.
Fizzle out.
Yeah.
Carr's he's close to the top 10. I wouldn't put them in the top 10, but I think the Raiders just always think, oh, we're going to go get one of these top QBs and move on from Carr.
That's just a ridiculous ask if you ask me. I mean, I don't have him in my top 10, the list I sent you earlier, but he's right there.
Yeah, he's probably right. He's probably 12 or 13.
Early teens, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Trevor, you brought up that Packers-Bengals game. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually watched that whole game. I wasn't watching Red Zone for the second window, but yeah, I was really impressed with how the Bengals played. They looked like they weren't, starstruck at all. They looked like they were supposed to be there. They were ready to be there with the Packers. The defense played well. They played good enough to win. Burrow had a really, really horrible interception in overtime, which didn't end up costing him because Crosby missed 3 straight kicks. But yeah, in the last the fourth quarter of that game, they came back, tied it up, and then nothing happened until overtime. They finally got a kick to win it, but yeah, I know they lost, but I was impressed with the Bengals, especially their defense.
Yeah,
they look like maybe this year they'll be a fringe playoff contender, but I think by next year they should be a player in the AFC.
Yeah,
Burrow improve on that O line.
Yeah, because that defense almost looks like it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot better than it was last year.
Yeah,
just need that line to come around, but been better this year at least.
Absolutely. No, a game that surprised me last week was the Browns and Chargers. I did not expect that to be as high scoring as it was. I mean, both.
Lack of defense.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Chargers defense has looked good this year. The Browns defense had looked pretty decent. I just didn't expect 42-47. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll give props to Baker. Not a huge Baker fan, but he's dealing with an injury. He played pretty well. He kept them in the game.
Yeah.
Until the end.
Yeah.
But Herbert just looked amazing in that game.
So here's a funny little story. I coach a kid at the golf academy. His name's Daniel Jones. So obviously I call him Danny Dimes every time I see him. Daniel Jones was hurt in this game. Had to have Mike Glennon come in and play.
Mike Glennon.
Carrie, are you okay?
I'm okay. A little sad. The funny thing was the Giants kind of hung in that game the whole way.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah, even with Glennon.
Yeah, if they had Daniel Jones and Saquon and Gall, they didn't lose all their weapons, I think would have been a lot more interesting. But they held their way for a while. I mean, they ended up losing in the end, but I think it was good they put up a fight. And
yeah. Big coming out game for Kadarius Toney. Should definitely target him in fantasy if you can.
Yeah,
he had a big day.
Huge day. Huge day.
He didn't even get to finish the game either.
No.
Yeah, he got hurt.
He got kicked out.
Well, hopefully Jones will be back next week. But
did you guys see Saquon's ankle when he hurt it?
Yeah.
Oh,
little
God.
golf ball rolled up. Yeah.
That did not look fun. As someone that has a lot of ankle issues, that's not fun to look at. But so obviously these games have an impact on our pick'em that we're doing season long. So who do you guys think won last week's pick'em?
I'm pretty sure I'm like 20 games over 500, so I'm going with me.
Carrie?
Usually me, because I'm a winner and I don't lose.
You picked the Bengals, Gary.
I did? Oh, yeah. So did Zach.
No, actually, you're wrong.
Trevor did, didn't he?
Trevor was the only one that picked the Bengals. Wait, no.
No, it was Carrie.
It was Carrie.
Yeah, me and Zach picked the Packers.
Yes. Trevor was upset about it. No, I listened to the podcast. You can go back and listen to it. So, Carrie actually finished last.
Sad.
9-7 last week. We didn't have any losing records. So, 9-7 last week for Carrie. Trevor finished 12-4. and I finished 11-5.
All right.
So Trevor is still the leader currently in the year-long pick'em we're doing. I'm a little upset about it because the Colts would have given me the win for the week, but screw me, I guess.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Do you have my overall?
I don't have it in front of me right now. No.
Oh well.
I'll tell you next week after you go like 5-11. I go perfect.
Oh, not happening. Not happening, dude.
All right, so we're gonna go right into this week's pick'em before we bring our guest on. So first up, we have the Bucks at the Eagles playing Thursday night in Philadelphia. Who you got, Trevor? Since you're the leader.
This is interesting. Brady is actually questionable for this game. He had his hand wrapped after that big win over Miami, which Kerry was at that game. But I am gonna go with absolutely the Bucks.
Bucks. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Kerry?
I like the Eagles team this year. I don't think they're great, but they've been pretty competitive early on. So I think this game could end up being close, but I think the Bucks just have so much more talent on offense, so I'm going Tampa.
All right. I'm going to take Tampa Bay too. I think that they look good this year. I think their skill players are good enough that no matter who they put behind center, even if Brady doesn't play, I think they can beat the Eagles. So I'm going with Tampa Bay.
Blaine Gabbert could do it.
Yeah.
He's a pretty serviceable backup.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have the Miami Dolphins taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Early morning Sunday game. Who you going with, Kerry?
I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I don't really love them this year, but the Jaguars just a mess. And I think the Dolphins, with presumably Tua coming back, will get a little bit of a motivation boost with him back in the lineup. So I think the Dolphins will edge out a pretty low scoring
Wait, Tua's coming back this game?
He's projected to be back, yeah.
Okay.
But still not – he's activated off IR today, but I think he'll still be questionable for Sunday.
Okay.
That sucks. Because if it wasn't Tua, I actually want to give this game to the Jags. But with Tua, I think he's got enough control over that offense, control over time of possession. And that really decides it for me, whether or not Tua is playing. What's their record right now, Kerry? Are they 2-3?
1-4.
1-4. I'm gonna say that Tua will not play and the Jags will win.
Honestly, I think it's just going to come down to like Trevor Lawrence making a dumb mistake at the end, like getting picked off by Xavier Howard or something. Because that is still a dangerous secondary, and he's been pretty careless with football early on.
Okay, so Trevor, did the Jags win last week?
They did not, sadly.
Okay, so I'm going with Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I got to stick to my word, even though I think this is a winnable game for him. Especially if Tua comes back, I think this is a winnable game. But I'm taking the Dolphins regardless, because I'm picking against the Jags until they prove me they can win a game. All right, next up we have the Vikings at the Panthers. Who are you going with, Trevor?
Ooh, Sam, you're gonna have to forgive me, but give me Skull. Give me the Vikings.
You're picking against Sam Darnold?
Yeah, he's lost like 2 games in a row now.
All right.
I think he'll have a good game.
Kerry?
Minnesota's defense has not impressed me.
The Vikings' offense kind of fallen off last 2 weeks, and they really struggled, surprisingly, against the Lions last week. But Panthers just been playing so mediocre on offense without McCaffrey. I think Vikings will let it out in a close one.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings as well. I do like Sam Darnold, but like I said last week when I picked against the Panthers, I said this offense just doesn't look the same without McCaffrey. So I'm taking Skull as well. Next up, we have the Chargers at the Ravens. Ravens playing at home, taking on another good AFC team. Who you got, Trevor?
Give me Lamar.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kerry?
I'm going with the Chargers. I mean, this is a team that's pretty much one field goal away from being 5-0.
Y'all love doing that.
I mean,
I
it's
do.
just facts. I'm going with the Chargers as well. I think that they're just a better team overall. Whether it's on defense or offense, I think that the Chargers are a better team. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams taking on the New York Giants in New York. Who you going with, Kerry?
I'm going to go with the Rams. I mean, 100% if Glennon's starting, but this Giants team just a shell of itself with all these injuries.
All right. Trevor?
See. I am going to go with the Rams. Yeah.
All right. I am also going to take the Rams. The Giants just aren't impressing me much this year. All right. Next up, we've got the Houston Texans traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Who you going with, Trevor?
I wouldn't mind this being my upset of the week, really. Where's this game being played? Indianapolis?
Yeah.
I think they'll get it done in front of the home crowd. Big day for the running backs.
All right.
Big day for Johnson.
Kerry?
I just don't trust this Colts team. I say Texans going to pull the upset.
And I'm going with Kerry, actually. This Texans run defense has been pretty good this year. And I don't trust the Colts passing attack. So I'm going to take the Texans on the road. I'm shocked to hear myself say this, but I think that all in all, I don't think the Colts can be consistent enough to beat the Texans. Because the Texans are a bad team, but they're decent everywhere, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Tyrod comes back too, that'd be more consistency in the offense.
Yeah.
You saw, I mean, they played well with him early on this year.
Yeah.
Whether they go back to Tyrod or keep Bills.
They should go back to Tyrod. He's a better player. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Washington football team. Who you going with, Trevor?
Kansas City can't lose all of them, right? I think I got the Chiefs. I think.
All right. Kerry?
These are the two worst defenses in football right now. And both defenses suck, so it's really going to come down to the offense. And sorry, Zach, I'm taking Mahomes over Heineke. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I just don't think Heineke's going to be able to overpower as much as Mahomes can.
So here's my thought process when I'm thinking about this game. Okay, despite how bad that back end is on the defensive side of the ball for Washington, that front four was actually getting a lot of pressure last week. After watching the game back, looking at, the offensive snaps and when it was a passing play, how deep that defense was what would you call it? Penetrating the O-line?
I would call it Jameis Winston.
I would definitely call it penetrating.
But I'm going to take Washington just because the Chiefs O-line is so bad. I think that they'll be able to get after Mahomes, force him into some bad plays, and then walk away with a win. I mean, really, what the last game showed, at least for me, was that if you take away Travis Kelce, it really hurts that Chiefs offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a decent Bills secondary. This is a Washington secondary that just got torched by Jameis Winston and a bunch of third-string receivers. Like,
Okay.
What? Let's just watch this game end up being like 17-13.
Yeah.
Defensive battle.
That's
Just like how
that
we thought the
happens
Browns-
so often. Like you see these two offensive powerhouses like go up against each other, ends up being like the lowest scoring game ever. Happens more often than you would think. Anyway, moving on to our next game, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. Who you going with, Kerry?
Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers has always proved he's the Bears' daddy, and he's just going to prove it again once this week.
All right, Trevor.
I actually am picking the Bears to start their Fire Matt Nagy chant this week. Give me the Packers.
All right, I'm with you guys. I'm taking the Packers. Even if it is a close game, I have complete confidence that Aaron's going to find a way to win like he does so often in the fourth quarter. Next up...
They've been really conservative with Justin Fields early on.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
They haven't asked him to do much.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ready yet, and they know that. But
Yeah.
even if he was, it's Matt Nagy. What are you going to do?
5-yard screen.
5-yard screen. Next up, we have a cat fight going on in Detroit. The Bengals taking on the Lions. Who you going with, Trevor?
Oh, Joey B all day. Give me the Bengals.
All right.
Big day for Jamar Chase again.
Okay. Kerry?
Honestly, I could lean Lions. They're probably the best 0-5 team I've seen. They've been competitive in
Yeah, they
almost
have.
won most games this year. But I just don't trust their defense, and I think Joey B is a big day in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm going with Cincinnati as well. That defense is much improved from last season, and it seems like they're able to move the ball effectively enough on offense to win games against teams that aren't great. And I think the Lions are a team that's not great. So I'm taking the Bengals, especially because Jared Goff has just been inconsistent this year. He looks really good one second and then like a deer in the headlights the next. So taking Cincinnati. Next up, we've got the Arizona Cardinals traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Who you got? Kerry.
This is gonna be a good game. I'm gonna watch this game.
I'm going to Cleveland. Honestly, I think the Cardinals are a good team, but I don't think they're undefeated good. And I think Cleveland's going to come in there with a run game and force Kyler to make a mistake or two.
Okay.
Trevor? Yeah, it kind of depends on what Baker we get. I could see this game going either way, but I'm going to go with the Browns as well. The Cardinals have looked a little shaky over the past 2 weeks, not as sturdy and consistent as they did starting off the year. But yeah, I think the Browns will take this one.
All right. I'm going to make a bet on this game.
All right.
I am so confident the Cardinals will win.
That if they don't,
what should I do if they don't?
Eat paper.
No, you have to do something brown.
You have to chug a gallon of milk in 10 minutes.
No.
What? He needs some milk.
Man.
No, wait.
Put me on the spot.
You have to write one sentence 100 times.
What?
Taylor Heineke is not good.
Okay, but what if he goes off this week and throws 450 yards?
Nope,
and
you're writing
touchdowns?
Taylor Heineke is not good 100 times.
That has nothing to do with the Browns and the Cardinals.
That's a good point. I think we got to... so confident that the Cardinals win. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm picking against both of you two. Because both.
I want you to go to the store.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to buy a white T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to buy markers. I want you to make yourself a Baker Mayfield. No, not a Baker Mayfield because you like Baker Mayfield. Okay, an OBJ jersey. I want you to color it. Make it look as official as possible.
Okay.
And then where the name part goes, you put daddy. Everything else looks official, but where it would say Beckham Jr., you put daddy.
Okay.
And I want you to wear it. I want you to go back to the store,
And wear it
the
around the
same
store.
store,
Do I have to film this?
wear it. Just get a picture. Get a picture with one of the employees.
Okay. All right,
Go
sounds
Browns.
good. All right. Sounds good. All right, let's go here some. All right, next up we have the Cowboys going to New England to take on the Patriots. Who are you going with? Since it's your team, I'm gonna let you go first, Kerry.
Cowboys. Patriots defense just hasn't impressed me enough, and Cowboys look like the real deal. I don't
Yeah.
see anything wrong with that team right now.
They remind me a lot of the Bucks last year. How the offense just came out firing on all cylinders. They looked good. The defense looked better than you expected, and it was a defense that looked like they were progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Dallas's defenses looked like, especially on that that back half. Trayvon Diggs, 6 interceptions. He got 6 or 7.
6.
I think he's got 6. And I mean, who knows? That's maybe it's a Cowboys year. Maybe it's their year. Finally.
You just
After
look at
all
how
these
good
years.
that offense is.
Yeah.
They got great wide receivers. Schultz is having a great year at tight end. Pollard, Zeke's a great duo. Dak's the top 10 quarterback. Right?
Deke, Zach.
Zeke's top 10.
The only problem's been the center Tyler Biadasz, who had a bad game last week, but they're the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm taking Dallas as well. I really like the Dallas team this year, which hurts me to say because I'm not a big fan of the Dallas Cowboys, but they look really good this year. Next up, we have... Is this the new Pooper Bowl? Like, I know they're two teams that aren't terrible, but Raiders at the Broncos.
Two mediocre teams.
That's going to be it. That's going to be my game that I'm 100% will not watch a snap of probably this week.
All right.
I have one every week, and that sounds... Unless there's another one coming up, which I don't think there is, that's probably going to be the one that I will not be watching this week.
So who you taking, Trevor?
Where is it? Denver?
It's in Mile High.
Give me the Raiders.
Ooh. All right. Kerry.
I'm gonna take the Raiders as well, but I think they'll bounce back after losing Gruden, and I just don't see anything in this Denver team right now beyond average.
I'm going to take Denver, and I am so confident. I'm willing to make 2 bets in the same podcast. What else? Throw it at me.
Same thing, but a Carl Nassib jersey and a bunch of rainbows.
I feel like that's offensive. Okay, John Gruden.
You're betting Denver?
Oh,
Yeah.
or you have to make a shirt that says Drew Lock sucks all over it.
I want you to make a group chat with your mother and father and ask them what is the Mile High Club.
I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I'll do the Drew Lock sucks thing. I really like Drew Lock. I think he's going to show up.
All right.
So I got to make 2 shirts, basically, if the Cardinals and the Raiders win. Or the Cardinals lose and the Broncos lose. Sounds good to me. I'm down with it. All right, next up, we've got the Seahawks at the Steelers. Who you going with, Trevor?
Hawks. Oh, wait. Russ is out. Oh, man. I was unprepared for that. That's such a curveball. Jeez, Juju's out too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Out for the year.
Let me just flip a coin. Hang on. Steelers.
Did you actually flip a coin?
I flipped a pen. Yeah.
Okay. Kerry, what is your pick?
I'm going Steelers. I have no
Wow.
faith without Russ.
Wow. I'm taking Geno Smith all the way. Let's go. I am so confident Geno Smith. He looked really good last week, and he's going to look just as good this week. You guys are going to be shocked.
I'm open to being shocked by Geno Smith.
I am so confident in this pick. I'm not going to make a bet on it, but I'm very confident in this pick. I like Geno Smith. At the Steelers. I think he's going to take it down on Sunday Night Football prime time. And then last but not least, we have the Bills taking on the Titans. The Titans at home. The guest we have coming on is a big fan of the Bills. So who you guys going with? We're going to start with Carrie.
I'm going to go with the Bills. Titans have just disappointed me this year. And, I mean, they struggled last week against the Jags until later on. And just how good the Bills looked last week, I don't think there's any chance the Titans pull out the upset.
All
Yeah,
right.
I remember looking at the schedule when we were doing that pick'em in the off season and seeing this game prime time. I was so excited for it. The Titans have not lived up to the hype yet, with AJ Brown not being the same one he was last year, and then Julio not really showing up yet. But yeah, I think the Bills will definitely get this done pretty easily. What about you, Zach?
Hold on 1 second. I'm checking something. Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah, I'm taking the Bills. This is another pick that I'm confident in, but we're not going to make a bet on it because you guys also picked the Bills. I would be willing to bet on almost anything. The Bills win this game. So because Tennessee's defense is so bad, and their offense has been unimpressive up to this point, I just don't see them taking on a Bills team that beat up on the Chiefs last week. So
clean sweep for the Bills.
yeah.
They're definitely one of the hottest teams in the NFL. They look amazing after week one. They put that in the back mirror, and they've been a completely new team. And we got a pretty big Bills fan on. We got Brandon Bean on, the Magic Bean. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Sounds good, man. So speaking of that first week one, that ugly loss to the Steelers, starting off 0-1. Josh Allen, he didn't really look good. Were you concerned at all at the time that this year might be a fall off or kind of a disappointing year after last year?
I was kind of concerned because, after the Panthers got a 15-1 year, and McDermott was the defensive coordinator of that team, and Brandon Beaton was the GM of that team, they went 5-8 the next year. So I was kind of nervous it would be a replica of that, but the Bills have been looking a lot better lately.
Yeah, and I know Kerry was over the offseason. He was talking about how, he was expecting them to fall off, and he didn't see a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball.
That's because Kerry's a moron.
He looked pretty smart after week one, though. That 0-1, they didn't look great. But, yeah, I mean, they're hot now. They're playing some of their best football. Since that week one, they've been dominant. They scored 35, 43, 40, and now 38 in a big win, primetime over Kansas City. But I guess that win over Kansas City was pretty convincing. So I guess besides the Chiefs, who are a couple threats that might worry you coming out of the AFC?
The top threat for the Bills, I'd say, is the Buccaneers, because they have a tough defense. They're not doing so well against the pass this year, but the run defense has been doing really well.
Yeah,
and that's been really good for the Bills this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense is pretty well.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about maybe the Ravens? Like how Lamar's been playing? If obviously the season doesn't end today, but the Bills keep playing how they're playing, the Ravens keep playing how they're playing, and they meet in the playoffs. Is that a team that worries you at all, or do you think they could get by the Ravens?
In the first 3 quarters of most games that the Ravens have been playing, I am not worried, because the Bills have been playing consistent football the last 3 or 4 games. So I think that if we did play the Ravens in the playoffs, we would get a huge lead early, and even if they did start making a comeback, that the Bills would be able to keep the lead.
Gotcha. How about a team like the Browns? Do they worry you at all?
Not one bit.
No.
Baker Mayfield has been looking very mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you got to go
Consistent
with
as
the
well.
Chargers.
Yeah,
I think
Chargers. I
Chargers
think.
are probably the biggest.
But
Like,
their defense didn't look so
right
good
now.
against the Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if
Their
you look
offense is high powered, but
Yeah,
I'm,
their
I'm not
offense is
completely
high-powered.
sold on the Chargers yet.
The Chargers always have a problem with staying healthy too, whether it's Bosa or Derwin James. So
Mhm.
it might just come down to whether they can stay healthy or not. Even
Yeah. But I think this is a kind of an off year for the AFC, especially with the Chiefs' defense and being as bad as it's been. They're not really the threat that they've been the past few years. The Ravens look good, but then, I mean, besides that, the Raiders look like they're starting to fizzle out. Broncos' offense hasn't figured it out. Colts have been a disappointment. Bengals, they look good, but not a team that you're going to expect to go deep in the
Yeah.
playoffs. And then teams like the Jets, Jags, Dolphins, Texans, none of those teams are really,
showing up.
yeah. But
where do you see the Bills ending up in like playoff seeding, like first overall, third, somewhere like that?
I might be a little bit biased here, but I don't have the Bills losing another game.
they definitely could do it, especially in the AFC.
Yeah.
And their division. I mean,
looking a little open this year.
It's a tough game in Gillette always, but Bills are talented to beat anybody else on the rest of their schedule. They do play the Bucks, is that right? Later on in the year?
Yeah, week 14.
Maybe week 14. That sounds about right. Now, has anyone been more of a pleasant surprise for you this year than Dawson Knox?
Oh, I was gonna say Dawson Knox. Zach Moss.
Zach Moss, yeah.
He's been looking explosive off the line.
Yeah.
Even in the past game, he's been getting through defenders and breaking tackles.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's looked much improved from last year, where they kind of struggled to find a consistent run game.
Do you have any worries for Cole Beasley and how he's kind of disappeared from the offense the last couple of weeks?
No, since the rest of our offense is picking up for him, and it doesn't we don't need one player to keep consistently playing as well because we have so many other weapons on the offense.
That's true.
Sanders had a big game last week. I mean, there's a lot of options on that offense.
And even with if you would have told me 5 games in, Stephon Diggs has 370 yards and 1 touchdown, you might be worried about the Bills. But I mean, with even their number one threat on offense having a slow start, those bad numbers, they've been putting up 30s, 40s every week. So, and the team, that offense, I mean, it looks like a great unit.
And like I said, at the beginning of the year when we were doing fantasy sleeper picks, I knew Sanders was going to I thought he might even take the role of Cole Beasley in that offense eventually by the end of the year because I think he's just a overall better player. But he finally kind of had a coming out week last week.
So you said you don't have them losing another game. So you think 16-1 is pretty realistic? Say, I mean, I know at the end of every year there might be some resting some starters or don't want to get them injured for the playoffs. But say if they were to play, Josh Allen plays at least every game this year, plays at least half of the last 2 or 3 games. You think you could see him going 15-1?
Yeah, like last year against the Dolphins, they had him play for the first half, and then they rested all the starters. We beat, and then our backups, still beat the Dolphins and outscored them the rest of the game. So I wouldn't be worried about the Jets in Week 18.
I mean, really, they have a pretty easy schedule rest of the way. Besides,
they do. I was just looking at that.
Yeah, Saints, Panthers, Titans, couple decent, not great teams, but nobody else really that tough. They're playing the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And I know you brought up the Bucs as being one of the top threats for Buffalo this year. They're another team that's 4-1. Do you think the Bucs have what it takes to go 16-1 as well, or do you see them dropping a couple games?
I have them finishing the year 14-3.
Okay. Yeah, they do have a hard schedule in that second half of the year.
To drop them in the one game to the Bills, and then I have them losing week 18 because I'm assuming that they're probably gonna sit their starters and lose
Yeah.
the Panthers.
And it's not looking like anybody's going to challenge them for the division at all.
No.
I have the Panthers coming in second at 9-8.
Yeah, I think I had the Panthers in second as well, going right around 500.
And we mentioned this earlier on the show. So far this year, there's been a ton of MVP candidates: quarterback Herbert, Brady, Lamar, and obviously Josh Allen. I'm assuming as a Bills fan, but do you think Allen will win MVP this year?
I'm not so worried about Allen winning the MVP this year. I'm just worried about winning. But if Allen could win the MVP, I think he could this year, and I'd be excited for him.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, if he weren't to win MVP, who could you see winning it, going strong all year out of all of these guys having a great year so far?
Herbert or Brady at 43 years old.
Yeah, they're both doing insane numbers.
Yeah.
Herbert's the real deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Called it.
Now,
Herbert get in the MVP conversation before the season started.
Mm-hmm. So currently in the AFC East, obviously the Bills sitting by themselves at 4-1, and the Patriots 2-3, Dolphins and Jets both 1-4. How do you see the division shaking out at the end of this year? You think it'll stay Bills, Patriots, Dolphins, Jets? You think the Patriots can turn it around at all, get a winning record, or?
I have the Dolphins turning around, getting second place at 10-7, but they're still gonna miss the playoffs because I have the Chiefs ahead of them at the 7th seed.
Mm-hmm.
And the Patriots are gonna get 7-10, and the Jets just suck.
Yeah.
Or Zach Wilson.
He showed a little bit of promise. Like I don't know if promise is the right word for it. I mean, definitely potential, second overall pick, but he's been impressive sometimes, and then just comes back the next play and looks like a deer in the headlights. But
if they can give him more time in the pocket, maybe he can.
Yeah.
I mean, none of the rookie QBs have looked overly impressive this year. I mean, Mac Jones has probably been the most impressive, and he hasn't been great by any means. And Fields, Lance, Lawrence, they've all had their issues early on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing a big turnover problem with these rookies this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Lawrence is what, eight picks already?
I think so.
Peyton Manning 2.0 rookie year.
Yeah, he's really in a weird situation there with the coaching and the all the pieces they brought in, just kind of jamming it together. Not really expecting a gel year or anything, but
yeah.
I don't know. That's an interesting team for being 0-5. I think that's an interesting team.
That's the thing that's so frustrating. As a Jags fan, it's one of the things that's so frustrating is you feel like we got a lot of young talent and we're just not doing anything with it. We're wasting some of these guys' best parts of their careers playing horrible football. It's really frustrating.
And another thing that ruined the Jaguars is the terrible trades that brought them down.
Yeah.
After the 2018 season, when they were promising almost to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer would just learn how to use James Robinson.
I set him on my bench because he's been doing so badly in fantasy.
Yeah.
You really have no idea what he's going to do, how many carries he's going to get.
If he's going to get carries. Week 1 was like the most offensive thing I've ever seen in my life.
Carlos Hyde.
Yeah.
And one thing that also confused me is drafting Travis Etienne.
Yeah, that confused me as well.
James Robinson's great year.
Yeah.
I heard that Urban actually wanted Kadarius Toney. That was his first choice for that pick, but with him being off the board, taking Etienne and then kind of putting him in that slot receiver thing, it was weird.
But yeah,
everything he's done has been weird since he got there.
So even if they would have gotten Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver core is fine. We got to fix the defense and the O-line. Like, I don't know why you're fixing a spot that doesn't need to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Just didn't
Yeah, you
make
got
sense.
one of the best young running backs in the league, who's having even a better year than last year so far. But especially in an age where you really shouldn't be taking running backs in the first round when they're only lasting a few years and
Yeah.
not hard to find decent running backs.
No, it's really not
The easiest position to
to
replace.
fill. Yeah. So
But yeah,
this week
Well,
the Bills taking on Tennessee. What do you think that game's going to look like?
I think Derrick Henry's gonna destroy us, but the rest of the offense isn't gonna do anything.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that Derrick Henry's gonna get 140 yards on us and 2 touchdowns, but the rest of the offense is gonna shit the bed.
Yeah, Tannehill's been really underwhelming this year.
Yep.
And who knows if Julio will play this week again.
He's so injury prone.
Yeah.
Yeah, really the last few years it's been hit or miss with him.
You know who else is injury prone? Brandon Scherf.
Yeah, not that one.
Oh man, that made me so happy.
But yeah,
4 weeks.
those looking good. 4 straight now. They're
Yeah.
4-1 overall. They're definitely one of the hottest teams for the rest of the year. Hopefully they can stay healthy and just keep watching that offense just steamroll. But yeah, John, we appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you having on, talking about the Bills. That was a
Appreciate you having me.
huge game with the Chiefs,
Absolutely.
and I know Bills Mafia is very happy.
Yeah.
Go break some tables for us.
I want to do that one day. I haven't been able to yet.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
All right, so obviously want to thank our guests for coming on the show.
For sure.
Really appreciate when we can have guests. It's always fun to be able to talk to other people. You know, as much as I like Trevor and Carrie, which is a decent amount. It's nice to hear from other people other times, because Carrie has some really awful takes. Speaking of awful takes,
It said Taylor Heineke was a top 10 quarterback.
okay, well we adjusted that, didn't we? Didn't we? By the end of the podcast, we adjusted that. I had him at 12, didn't I?
And you proved your stupidity.
I proved my stupidity. I said he might be bottom top 10.
And,
I had him at 12.
And 12's a bit high for you.
But you had him at like 28 or something like that. You said he's not even a top 20. Like, that's insane.
He's not my top 25. Trevor, where do you have him?
Not in your
Heineke?
top 25?
He's
Carrie.
one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Oh, okay.
I have him somewhere in my 20s. It's hard for me to
You
probably
guys are crazy.
I would say early to mid 20s. I mean,
You guys
he's
are
only played
crazy.
like 5 games. I mean, some of them have been good, but
He just tends to throw the ball up and kind of hope for the best too much. Kind of a Jameis.
Okay.
He's just been a little too careless, and I don't think he hasn't been that accurate.
Okay. You
It-
didn't.
it
You
sounds
clearly.
like,
It's
you know, maybe-
it's interesting. You clearly didn't watch the game last week. Even though he had 2 interceptions, he looked pretty good against a good defense. So, it's okay. It's okay, Carrie. You just don't watch the games.
Pretty good. He threw for under 50%.
Against a good defense, is the
They're
New Orleans
41
defense
passes.
good?
I'd put it in
for
the
no
good. not
reason.
great.
Huh?
They got some stars, but I wouldn't say they're great.
They're pretty
With
good.
a QB rating of 47.
Yeah, I know. But he was throwing really good down the field toward the sideline.
I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a good one. He's a solid backup, but I wouldn't put him anything before that.
Wow. Okay.
But that's
Alrighty.
not our debate today. So,
What?
but that's not our debate today.
That
so,
isn't
okay.
our debate today. So, Carrie, why don't you explain what me and you are going to be debating today?
We're going to be going through whether the Kansas City Chiefs will make the playoffs or not.
All
AC.
right. So, Trevor, you're going to moderate, correct?
Ooh, I will.
All right.
We usually solve this by rock, paper, scissors, but I'm going to flip the pin again. All right, Zach, you go first with your opening statement. Let's hear it. Kansas
right.
City making the playoffs?
Kansas City is not making the playoffs. And let me explain why. If you look at the rest of their record, or who they have left on the schedule, they're playing a lot of offenses that can score. And no matter how good Mahomes plays, this defense is going to cost them a lot of games this year. So if you look at their schedule so far, as they already have, exactly. So you look at their games this year, they probably should have lost to the Browns. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, if Baker didn't.
They definitely could have, yeah.
Yeah. They lost to the Ravens in a close one. Then they lost to the Chargers. They allowed the Eagles to put up 30. And they lost by 18 to the Bills, who pretty much dominated that entire game. Next, they're going up against Washington, who they could beat. So that would put them at what? What would that put them at? 3 and 3.
3 and 3.
Then they go up against the Titans, who has a bad defense, but a pretty good offense. I have them dropping that game. They're going up against the Giants, who, again, not a very impressive defense, not a very impressive offense. I actually have them winning that game. Going up against the Packers, they're going to lose. So that puts them at 5-5. Raiders, who they've already lost to once this year. That's a bit of a toss-up. Cowboys are going to beat the crap out of them. The Broncos has a good defense, and if their offense can play okay, they'll probably win that game. I have the Chiefs dropping that one. They play the Raiders again. I just don't see... They actually haven't played the Raiders this year. I apologize. That was a big mistake on my part. But the Raiders' offense is pretty good. Chiefs' defense, awful. I could see them dropping both the games to the Raiders, losing to the Cowboys, losing to the Broncos, losing to the Chargers. They have the Steelers, who has a very good defense. If their offense is even competent, they can win that game. The Bengals will probably beat them. And then they play the Broncos again, who could easily beat the Chiefs. I'm looking for wins, and I'm not seeing very many left. Now, they could conceivably beat the Raiders twice. They could end up taking the Broncos games. But if they lose those games, that gets them in a very bad situation where they don't have enough wins to be able to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So that's my argument.
Okay. All right. Kerry, do you have a rebut to anything that Zachary just said?
I will say, are you seriously saying you think the Broncos with Teddy Bridgewater will probably beat them twice?
I think it's a pretty easy situation to imagine.
A Raiders team that just lost their head coach.
You're saying this as a guy that just picked Las Vegas.
I don't love that team because they're playing who are they playing this week?
They're playing the Broncos.
A team I don't have faith in. Both are mediocre at best teams. I think, obviously, this team is going to go nowhere near the amount of wins they had last year, but I don't think it's out of the possibility for this team to come away with 10, 11 wins.
So let's say they beat the football team at Washington. That puts them at 3-3. I don't think they're going to beat the Titans. Any competent
You went through this before. Let me go through it.
Okay.
All right, so I'm taking them against Washington. Yep. 3 wins. I'm just going to skip around a little bit.
Okay.
Giants, 4 wins. I'm going to say they take 3 out of 4 from Denver and Las Vegas.
Okay.
7 wins. I'm lost. I say they'll beat the Steelers, 8 wins. I think they'll beat the Bengals, 9 wins. And then I think they'll win one of the either Titans or Packers games. So put them around 9, 10 wins.
9, 10 wins. And you think that there's not going to be 7 teams with 9 or 10 wins in the AFC?
Have you seen the AFC this year?
Okay, so let's take a quick look at the AFC. Okay?
When do I get mine?
Okay, go ahead, Kerry.
I keep getting rebuttals and never get my arguments in.
Well, let's go ahead and let's get that up. Wrap this up, whatever this little thing is, your rebut, and then I'll give you your opening statement.
Stupid little moderator over there.
Sorry. Oktoberfest is hitting tonight.
All right. I'll go 3 points is why I have them make the playoffs.
Okay.
1, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. They just overpower the other teams with their offense. Obviously, if you contain them, it's not the same. But when weaker defense is going against them, they're not going to be able to stop them. And you've seen in the past, when does this Chiefs team with Mahomes miss the playoffs? Or Chiefs team in general? 2, the defense is awful. I don't have faith in this team as a Super Bowl contender, but I see them at least making the playoffs. And the defense has pretty much hit rock bottom. Do you agree to that?
Yes.
There's nowhere to go from up. I think they will improve. I don't think they're going to be a lot better, but enough for Mahomes and the offense to carry the way. And my last main point is the AFC is very low on good teams this year. You got the Bills, obviously. You got the Titans, who are okay, not great. The Ravens, the Browns, 4. The Chargers is 5. After that, there's a lot of question marks. Who would you put as the other 2 teams in there?
So I have the Bengals, probably finishing with a better record than KC. And then, honestly, I could see the Broncos finishing with a better record than KC. I mean, KC's allowed 163 points. 163. Just to put that in perspective, they're more than 10. Allowed more than 10 points more than the next team. That's insane. That's insane.
But do you have that much faith in a team like Denver with like Teddy Bridgewater quarterback, who are, they're not a bad team, but they're not a great team by any means. These teams just aren't really playoff quality. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that end up around that 9-win, 10-win mark. It's going to really come down last week in the season with being how mediocre the AFC is this season.
So what's that saying? What wins championships?
Defense.
Defense wins championships. You know what's crazy about that? The Broncos have actually allowed the second least amount of points in the entire NFL, right next to the Bills, who've actually only allowed 64 points. Okay? So when I look at a team like the Broncos...
Who did the Broncos play the first 3 weeks of the season?
They played the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets.
And that's real hard to play defense against those 3 teams?
Well, I thought Danny Dimes was a good quarterback. I thought he offense.
The first week.
Oh, he struggled the first week. Well, let's look at this Giants team has done this year in terms of points scored. So they put up 27 against the Saints, only 14 against the Falcons, 29 against Washington, only 13 against Broncos. This is a team that can score. Am I wrong in saying that the Giants can score?
The Giants have had real problems scoring this year.
Can they score?
Not well.
Okay.
And
they put up 27 against the Saints.
Yeah, and that was a great game. But through 5 games, has it been a good offense? No.
No, it hasn't. But they've also suffered a lot of injury issues and everything that you weren't seeing early on in the year. Obviously, the first game, they were pretty much healthy with the absence of Saquon Barkley being 100%.
But the thing with this Broncos team, what has happened when they've started to play better opponents? They got beat bad by the Ravens. The Steelers blew them out early on. They came back, but couldn't go back to win. They're just not really a contender, especially with a game manager, quarterback like Teddy B.
But that's the thing. A game manager against that Chief defense is going to look like Aaron freaking Rodgers. I mean, wait. So here's the thing, Kerry. You've said before that Baker Mayfield is a game manager. How did he look against the Chiefs week 1?
He looked pretty good. And you said this before. Defense, I agree with you. Defense wins championships. Has there been teams with great offenses and terrible defense that made the playoffs?
Yes.
And is this a team that
where did you put them before we went into the season?
I probably put them at near the top of the AFC.
Yeah, they were probably in all of our top fives overall.
But that's the thing, Kerry. It doesn't matter what we did at the beginning of the season. We're 5 weeks in now. They look like doo-doo.
And this is a Super Bowl team from last year, which obviously has a lot of time left.
Do you understand how often the losers of the Super Bowl make the playoffs? I'll give you a hint. The loser of the Super Bowl, how often do they make the playoffs?
I don't know. I'm not a nerd.
Yeah, you are.
True.
Well, a lot of this is going to boil down because the offense it's the offense as long as they can stay healthy. Harry, I think you're going to have to base your argument off of that do you think the defense can get better, improve? I know you said they're at rock bottom, but are they going to stay there? It sounds like Zach thinks they're going to stay there. Do you think they're going to stay there?
I think they'll get better. I don't think they'll get much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be, this offense. This offense has carried this team for years. This Chiefs team has never been about the defense.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to come to kill them in the playoffs. But for them to be a 6-7 seed, is that out of the question?
I don't think it's out of the question. No. I just don't think it's going to happen.
It's just, do you really have enough faith in those other outlying teams? Or do you have faith in arguably top 3, if not the best quarterback in the NFL? In a line that has a team that is unhealthy right now, but is going to get some players back in the next couple weeks. And once this offense gets back to full health, should be able to get back.
But without that defense improving, if you have an okay defense and you can stop Mahomes 4 times a game, I think that if your offense is competent, you can put up enough points to overcome them. I think you're putting I think you're putting way too much trust in that offense, and you're kind of blinded by the fact that offense is so good, which it is, that you're ignoring how bad the defense has been all year. I mean,
but the problem is when you look at the teams they're playing, there's a couple, but a lot of these teams are mediocre to bad defenses. Would you disagree? Whether the Titans, Washington.
Giants have kind of underperformed their defense. They're a good unit, but they've underperformed a little bit.
But Raiders, there's a few good defenses there. Broncos are solid. Bengals are solid.
Cowboys are improving.
Cowboys are looking actually pretty decent this year.
The Cowboys probably have one of the best defenses they'll play.
But when you look at the Titans game, you also have to take into account time of possession. Like, Derrick Henry could legitimately average 8 yards a carry against the Chiefs. And when you deal with that and time of possession, how many times is Mahomes going to get the ball? If they ever go 3 and out, what does that do for them? There's just too many question marks on this defense for me to give them, the benefit of the doubt.
And obviously, they're going to have to improve if they want to make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
And they need to cut Daniel Sorensen because he sucks. But
I cannot believe there's not somebody better than him.
He's so
on
bad.
The sideline.
It's because he'll get a couple big plays every year, and then he'll give up these 100-yard passing yards a game, but then he'll make this great saving play at the end. And they're like, let's bring it back another year. Yeah. But, really, but who was your other teams besides the Broncos in those last couple spots? I know you said the Bengals.
The Bengals. Hold on 1 second. I had the Bengals. I think I said the Broncos with their defense. I think that they'll do okay. You said the Ravens, Browns, Chargers, Bills, Titans. So Ravens, Browns, Chargers, Bills, Titans. I said the Bengals because they've actually look decent this year. They look pretty good. They took Green Bay to the brink. Which granted almost every team has this year, but Aaron Rodgers just finds a way to win.
There's just
I
lot of
understand
idiocy.
there's a big fall off, but here's the thing: you're just looking. Currently, the Chiefs have a losing record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other teams in the AFC have a winning record. And they need to be in the top 7. They're currently in 9th in the AFC.
And
They just need
but a lot
one
of it
more
early on-
team outside of the Bengals to finish like with 10
Then when you
wins
look at,
and
like,
they lose.
those teams over 500, like the Raiders and the Broncos, they haven't played each other yet, so obviously it's going to come into it.
Yeah.
And those games are going to be huge.
Yeah. I agree.
But it's really going to come down to, can like Teddy Bridgewater take this team, beat out Patrick Mahomes if it comes into an offensive battle? And are you really going to go with Teddy Bridgewater over Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, regardless of the defense? And once again, I don't have faith in this team as a Super Bowl contender, but I really just can't see a team this talented on offense not making the playoffs.
Okay, so so I wanted to talk a little bit about like what happens when teams lose the Super Bowl. So in 2001, St. Louis Rams went 14-2. The following season, 2002, they went 7-9. Oakland Raiders in 2002 went 11-5, and then in 2003 went 4-12. Carolina Panthers went 11-5 in 2003. Lost the Super Bowl, they went 7-9. Philadelphia Eagles 2004 13-3, 6-10. Chicago Bears 2006 13-3, 7-9. Carolina Panthers 2015 15-1, 6-10. Los Angeles Rams 2018 13-3, 9-7. San Francisco 49ers obviously 13-3 and then 6-10. So when you look at teams that lose a Super Bowl, typically they don't perform very well the next year. And I'm looking at a team right now that is 2-3, and their offense, honestly, they struggled last game. The Bills' defense is good, but not great.
But, I mean, obviously, 2-3, but how many of those games could they have won also? Obviously, it didn't happen, but the Ravens game,
Yeah, they could have won.
that was an easily winnable game. Who's their other loss to, besides Bills?
The Chiefs,
Yeah, who did they lose?
they lost to Chargers.
Chargers and
Another close one, too. And then the Bills.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
and the Ravens.
I think that Sunday night game was a bit of an overreaction, I'd say. The Bills were knocked out by the Chiefs last year in the playoffs. I think it was kind of a get back at them game. The Chiefs weren't really taking that as seriously as Buffalo. And Buffalo was kind of a revenge game for what happened last year.
Well, if the Chiefs aren't taking a game seriously when they're 2-2, then why should I expect them to take it seriously when they're 2-3? Especially when they were thought to be like the team to beat in the AFC this year.
True, but you never know if this game could be the turning point. Because sometimes it takes a terrible game like this to turn a season around, you know?
Yeah,
I guess. But, I mean, by comparison, obviously the Chiefs' offense is good, but by comparison, the Washington football team put up 21 against the Bills. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who has a horrible offense, put up 23 and won that game. Now, obviously, those are different teams, different games, different days, different conditions. But, they put up more points than the Chiefs against a Bills defense. Chiefs just don't look all there this year. I don't know whether it's coaching or if it's personnel, but they look not.
I
the
just
same.
don't think it's time to jump ship yet. I would say if they lose next week to Washington, I think that's when I'd really start to get worried about Kansas City. If they come, bounce back, Mahomes is another big game. Chiefs steamroll to Washington. You pretty much see, this team's going to start to get on track. But if they go into against Washington
and Heineke goes in there and destroys that defense, then you might start to get worried as those winnable games start to dwindle down.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all going to come down to really that defense, and they really are at rock bottom now. If they do improve, I could definitely see them making the playoffs, especially with, one of the faces of the league like Mahomes. But if it doesn't, all those winnable games are just going to be toss-ups, really. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. We'll have to see.
All right.
Now we're second debate.
Second debate. And it is about whether Saquon Barkley is overrated. Is that correct?
It's whether Saquon was basically worth the pick, taking him as high as they did.
Okay.
Did it pan out?
Did it? Okay. So I'm gonna give Carrie, since I started first last time, I'm gonna give you the opening arguments. So go ahead.
All right. So we know running backs, as I mentioned earlier, taking them in a first round in today's NFL is kind of a reach. There's so many good running backs, like James Robinson, undrafted, that you can find late round gems. And with, lack of good offensive linemen, it's really hard to waste a first round pick on a running back, especially when you have such a high pick as they did. And Saquon, when he's healthy, he's been a great running back. But that is the huge problem. When he is healthy, he's had one full season, 2018. 2019, he played 13 games. In the last 2 years, he's played a total of 7 games. He's going to miss probably 2 to 3 more this week, and who knows how much he'll play the rest of the year. And running backs, the length of running backs' career is maybe 5-6 years, depending on the running back. So he's already kind of reaching where he's going to reach his peak, and a guy that struggled with injuries, pretty much nowhere to go from down. And you really look at who they could have taken in 2018 instead of Saquon with the number 2 pick. Obviously, I'm a big Daniel Jones fan, but they could have got a lot better QBs than Daniel Jones at 2. Let's just go through a couple of the options that this team could have taken instead of Saquon, whether it's Denzel Ward, Bradley Chubb, Quentin Nelson, who, with how bad their O-line is, would have been a great pick over Saquon. Josh Allen, Roquan Smith, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Derwin James, Jared Alexander, Lamar Jackson even, Nick Chubb, Darius Leonard. Obviously, those are a bit of a reach at that point, but you see there are just so many better options they could have taken than Saquon. And they kind of wanted one last thing for Eli, one last little toy for Eli. Did that work out? No. And how have the Giants done since then? Nothing.
All right.
Trevor, your turn.
All right. So, Trevor, you can do a rebuttal and also give your opening statement. I'm going to run get a beat.
I will. They did have a lot of underlying issues with that team, but with Eli on the way out, their quarterback that loved the city, it was obvious they wanted to bring in Saquon and try to have one more run at a successful season, which him being a generational talent, I think was absolutely the right pick to make right there. It's hard to protect a guy, a physical running back with that bad of a line, which has only gotten worse ever since drafting Saquon. But I think that was still the right pick there. And with what they were doing as a team, riding Eli's last couple years and then starting a rebuild, I think if they could have kept him healthy, that Saquon would have been the perfect piece to have a new quarterback under center, giving a ball off to Saquon.
All right. Carrie, do you want to respond?
How about instead of spending the second overall pick on a running back, you could have looked at a quarterback, the most important position instead, or an O-lineman, which I also would have been better at. We know Eli was already aging at that point, and they're just trying to add him weapons to hold off for one more year until they eventually got Daniel Jones. But there's plenty of options they could have taken in that draft at quarterback, whether it was Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson.
But at second overall, if you got a guy, Eli, that's going to play 1 or 2 more years and he's not going to sit on the bench, that kind of would have seemed like a wasted pick at the time. And there was no, I mean, who was picked third?
Sam Darnold. Your boy, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, was picked third. That was a guy that was expected to come in, play right away. Same with Baker. And having one of those guys just sit for 2 years, then watch Eli just kind of go out there and be old. I couldn't have seen them taking a quarterback there.
Like a guy coming off throwing for 3,400 yards, only 19 touchdowns and 13 picks. It was time to move on.
But it's Eli.
It's Eli.
He had the keys to the franchise. He was not going to get benched for a rookie.
He did the following season.
I know, but it was more of like him accepting that, and it was his time to go. But like right after that draft, that I think Saquon was the right pick there, especially like what he did in college. Like he was insane, and that's all you had to base it on at the time. Like obviously hindsight is 2020. The Giants needed a skill player at the time. He was the most electric running back and maybe the most electric player in college football for his last 2 years that he was there. He was a freshman, and he ran for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. His sophomore and junior year, he went crazy, and he combined in those last 2 years for over almost 2,800 yards and 36 touchdowns on the ground, had over 1,000 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns receiving. He's 6 foot, 234. Like, you can count running backs on one hand that fit that description with a college resume like that, as well as being 6 foot, 234. I mean, those guys, they don't come out every year.
But the thing is, in today's NFL, do you need to take a running back, especially second overall in the first round?
Well,
how many of the best running backs in the NFL were taken in the first round? Derrick Henry was a second-round pick. Dalvin Cook was a second-round pick. James Robinson was undrafted. Obviously, there's guys that pan out, guys that don't. Nick Chubb was a second-round pick. You can find these guys in the later round. It's not a hard position to get.
But none of those guys were as dominant and prominent in college as Saquon, except Derrick Henry.
Was running back their biggest need at that point? Was running back going to fix that franchise? And did it fix that franchise?
It had the best shot to fix the franchise.
Okay, so if I can interject a little bit here. Honestly, before this debate started, I was on Trevor's team, and right now I'm on Gary's team.
That's how we do it.
Just because if you look at the running backs for the New York Giants in 2017, you got a couple of guys that are decent, but none of them are good. Where you have a lot of other issues to figure out. So, like, Orleans Darkwa was a starting running back. I think he ended up with, like 170-something carries for 700-something yards. You have Wayne Gallman backing him up, then Paul Perkins and Shane Vereen. You know, none of those guys are going to absolutely light you up in terms of yards per carry or touchdowns or anything like that, but you had a lot of guys that could legitimately, be good enough to play running back in the NFL. Meanwhile, you look at other parts of their offense, like, for instance, you look at their O-line, a lot of old guys, and then wide receivers.
Darkwa played 15 games, and he had 750 yards.
On 171 carries.
Which is, what, like 4 yards a pop?
Let me do the math. I'm doing the maths right now.
If you were drafting a team, would you rather have a top 5 O-lineman or a running back that gets hurt easily.
I mean, but that's not who you were drafting.
Even then, a running back. Would you rather build your team around a bad O-line?
So it comes out to about
running back
4.4
in a
yards a
line in a
carry.
bad.
But still, that's a weak spot. You're starting running back. I mean, okay, 4.4 yards a carry. It's not bad. It's probably right around league average. But 750 yards. That's a reflection of the offensive line. But one guy at second overall is not going to fix that. Especially like, what were they going to do? Like come back next year and like be just as bad? Like Eli got older, Orleans Darkwa got older, but like
they were just as bad anyways. Here's the thing. Let's say the line went from bad to good with adding a big piece. I mean, Quentin Nelson himself transformed that Colts line.
But not his rookie year. He didn't.
He improved it. Regardless, with an improvement, is a running back. Well, who's going to do better? A great running back behind a terrible O-line or a good running back behind a decent O-line?
There weren't good running backs in that draft.
I think
Nick Chubb went like second round.
Well, okay. Well, the first round running backs, like I was only going first round because that's guys who were saying who should have been taken second overall instead. And the skill players that were taken in the first round of that draft, there was Saquon at 2, and then there wasn't another skill player taken until 24. And from 24 to 32, there was 2 running backs taken, Rashad Penny and Sony Michel. But I'm basing my argument completely off of the college career of Saquon Barkley, and there was not another player in college football that was that good and that dominant.
Okay, so it seems to me like you guys are, well, I mean, obviously, but you guys are kind of talking past each other in the sense that Kerry's making the argument, obviously, in hindsight, that it wasn't the best for the team. And you're making the argument that at the time it was what the team needed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Kerry, is my characterization of your argument correct?
I don't agree with what they needed at the time either.
Okay.
But I think because we're saying, was it a wasted pick at 2? So we're going back to draft night, Baker's off the board, Giants are on the clock. I think 10 times out of 10, you got to take Saquon at that pick, second overall.
Okay. And Kerry, who would you have taken at 2 in that draft?
I would have taken an lineman, so either Quentin Nelson or Mike McGlinchey.
Their line wasn't bad in what was it, 2018 they were ranked 21st.
It's 2017.
Right. Yeah.
2017, I know they added, wasn't that the year they added Eric Flowers and he had an awful year?
I forget when he got drafted.
No, it wasn't when they drafted him. It's when they added him. Because I think he'd been in the NFL for a few years. And then,
According to PFF, they were ranked the 26th overall line in 2017. They allowed 27 sacks in 2017, the 4th most in the NFL.
Yeah. And ever since Saquon's there, I mean, I know some people may be calling him a bust, but I think if anybody else had that second overall pick and there was a decent enough line to protect him, his career could have played out completely different. I think he was just watching him on Saturdays, like people were watching Penn State games every weekend.
And you agree that it ended up not being a great pick for them, right? And that I agree he would have been better off with a team that had a better line, obviously.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think 1,000% he was the best player in the draft.
At the time?
Who was drafted first overall?
Baker.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously, with the decision they made, the line ended up still being an issue today.
Yeah, it's fell from 21st, 17th, 31st, and before this year ranked very dead last in the league. And it hasn't looked like last in the league, but it has looked like bottom 5.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they got the injuries to show for it again.
Yeah.
And here's a quick off-topic Saquon question. Do you think he will play for somebody else in the near future, or he'll stay in New York for a while longer?
I wanted him to leave after his first injury, but I don't
Does
know.
his contract
he seems,
when does his contract run out?
It's I mean, if it's 3+1, 4+1, it's probably either this year or next. But yeah, he doesn't seem like the type of guy that would publicly request a trade or make a big deal out of it. He seems like he's a really quiet, hard worker. Worked back from that injury and got completely healthy. But I would absolutely love to see him somewhere else before he's late 20s, before his legs are giving out on him. But
I don't know. He works them legs out a lot. Have you seen those thighs?
he does, man. His calves too are as big as my thighs, probably.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think there were some interesting points made both ways. I think if you look in hindsight, I probably agree with Carrie that hindsight's 20/20 and all that. But in hindsight, probably would have been a better idea to take an offensive lineman and just try and bolster that O-line to try and give Eli and eventually Danny Jones some more protection.
Mm-hmm.
And this was also a Giants team that was more built around the passing game than the run game too. They had OBJ in his prime, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. That it wasn't really a running-based team, and they had the weapons in the passing game to be able to succeed offensively, even if they didn't take Saquon.
Yeah, I don't know the exact stats for the New York Giants season in terms of what they did offensively.
They sucked. That's what they did.
But I mean, I think in fantasy I had Wayne Gallman that year, and he wasn't awful. I mean, he was just like a serviceable number 2 guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, if you protect the quarterback and you give him time and you have a serviceable number 2 as your starter, then I don't know. I think in hindsight, I probably would have added an offensive lineman like Quentin Nelson or someone like that. But obviously, unfortunately, in the NFL, it's also a business. It's not only it's not only about winning games. It's about selling jerseys and doing all this kind of stuff. So, you got to kind of look at it in that sense as well, where you may want to win games, but also who's going to sell the most jerseys? Who's going to create the most hype for a franchise? And I think Saquon Barkley probably did that for them a lot.
Especially after the emergence of young OBJ. Like, he gave the offense a lot of hope. And then they had another guy who was a huge talent that they could pair with OBJ in that offense. And then imagine having a guy who was regarded as a top 10 receiver, a young receiver, and then bringing in a guy that had potential to be a top running back. It seemed like the right pick at the time for me. Would you say he was the most talented player in that draft coming out of college, Zach, on draft day?
Probably skill player, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to argue that there was a better skill player in that draft.
I mean, he was the sexy pick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, nobody likes taking an O-lineman.
Yeah.
First overall.
I mean, and that's one of the issues. Again, like I'm talking about with NFL being a business, you're not going to sell many Quentin Nelson jerseys. I'm sorry, guy's a great O-lineman, but you're just not going to sell many Quentin Nelson jerseys. Speaking of Kansas City, or speaking of New York Giants in 2017, though, they actually knocked off Kansas City in Week 11 of that year. Who was led by, that was when Alex Smith was a starter and Kareem Hunt was still on the team before he decided to
change positions and become a kicker.
But
yeah. But yeah, that was that's an interesting little tidbit of information from that season. But yeah, I think it's I think if you look in hindsight, again, if in hindsight, I'd probably agree with Kerry that probably would have been better to take an O lineman or someone to help out that defense. But even with that defense, the defense wasn't awful that year. I'm looking through some of the games. They beat Washington, or they lost to Washington 10-20. They lost to the Raiders 17-24. They allowed 30 to the Cowboys after a 20-point fourth quarter, where they were tied heading into it. I mean, they're not getting beat by big offensive performances. This is obviously when Landon Collins was on the team. They had a pretty decent defense, but probably bolstering that O-line to help out Eli and help out that running back core, who again was a bunch of guys that kind of I would put around mediocre in terms of their ability to play. Yeah, that's I think in hindsight I'm probably taking an O-lineman, but at the time, in terms of football being a business and what the sexy pick was at the time, I think Saquon wasn't the worst choice in the world.
Uh-huh.
So
And
how did you guys do fantasy this week?
so
I was actually going to bring that up. Speaking of Saquon, I have him in our Beerly League, and I don't have a running back on the bench that is not on the IR. So I actually put a waiver in for a running back, dropping the Browns defense. But yeah, coming off another loss, sadly, my team. I really don't want to talk about it that much. Sam Darnold 6 points, Saquon less than 1. I lost by 60, but really not putting on for the Beerly name this last week. Terrell, you matter, who I think has now won 3 straight games. He's in 6th place, really beat up on me. But yeah, this week I'm looking at a matchup with Eli Brasa, Daniel 4-1. He's got Jalen Hurts, Fournette, Chubb, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Conklin, Amari Cooper, Tyler Bass, and the Vikings defense. And I am just going to go ahead and say that I might be 1-5. Very embarrassing for Bucks by 50. But yeah, it was it was a fun week last week.
gosh, what are you guys doing? I'm looking at the records right now, and what are you guys doing? I'm just like so concerned.
There's a real raw talent. He really might go undefeated. 186 points last week, and Kyler only gave him 13.5. His team's dirty.
Speaking of raw talent, guess who I'm playing this week?
Are you?
Yeah, I'm playing raw talent this week. He's projected to win currently. I'm waiting for a whatchamacallit to go through. Waiver wire request to go through because I have Kyle Pitts, who has on a bye this week. Atlanta's on bye.
At his coming out party last week.
Yes, he did. You were right on last week's podcast that he was going to have a coming out party. So, yeah, I had him. He did well for me last week. Let me just go back to that game. It was an absolute not great performance for me, but the team I was playing played worse. So I was going up against the Redbirds 2-3-4. I only put up 104 points. Derek Carr did not play well against Chicago like I expected him to, and Marvin Jones didn't really do much either. Everywhere else on my team was solid. Cordarrelle Patterson and Mike Davis both played well. I got 18.4 from Cordarrelle, and Mike Davis put up 12. Tyreek Hill only got 14, but Kyle Pitts, 26.9 points, was quite a coming out party. Tyler Boyd, 6.4. Graham Gano, 12. And Las Vegas didn't perform well against Chicago, only 3 points from them. But the real thing that hurt me was Derek Carr only pulling up 7 points. So I'm expecting a little bit better performance from my team this week. I got a lot of I got a couple Washington guys starting for me, going up against the worst defense in the NFL, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. So Taylor Heineke at quarterback, J.D. McKissick at running back. Then I have Aaron Jones against that Chicago defense. Marvin Jones against a Miami team that's not great. I picked Jacksonville to lose, but I think Marvin Jones will do fine. KC going up against that Washington, or Tyreek Hill going up against the Washington defense, I think is a pretty good lock for a good number of points. Then I have Robert Woods, Graham Gano, and the Cowboys defense going up against New England. So I'm feeling pretty good about this week. Tyrod Taylor still says he's on IR for me, but, the sooner I can activate him, the better. I just want Tyrod back in the NFL. Kerry, what about you? What are you doing this week?
I'm sucking once again. Yeah, last week did not go well. Super Camario kind of just destroyed me. I think he had like 3 guys get like 100 points. He had Lamar got 42, Antonio Brown 31, Kamara had 30, Hopkins at 20. My team just struggled. Captain Kirk did nothing against the Lions. I don't know how. Besides James Robinson and Cooper Kupp and Alexander Madison, who had a great game, nobody else did anything. I thought Cameron Brate would catch a touchdown if the Bucs scored 45 points, but he only had 2.2 points, so that didn't work out. And the one week I decided to bench Myles Gaskin is the one week he goes off for 31 points.
Especially PPR. He was catching a lot.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so it was a rough week for me. I'm taking on the Cowboy Hawks, 1-4 record. There's a lot of 1-4 of us in this league. I think there's 6 of us right now.
Yeah, there's only 2 undefeated teams right now, and there's only going to be
Very
1 after
top-heavy.
this week. So
Yeah, I got a lot of. My team's kind of a mess right now. I need McCaffrey to come back. I really have no depth whatsoever. So it's not going great here for we live in a society, but I don't know.
I
one day we'll turn
want,
this
listen, as much as I want the Beerly Boss to go 5-0, it's going to be a tough week this week, I think. Raw Talent's team is so good. Kyler Murray, Derrick Henry, Antonio Gibson, who's playing the KC defense, DJ Moore, Jamar Chase, Mark
He almost
Andrews.
was top 10 players of everything.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Matt Prater, and then the Bills defense, which I think the Bills defense against Tennessee might be a little bit of a liability in primetime, but I mean, that's not going to be enough to drag his team down. I mean, if you look at the rest of his team, it's pretty good. So
He just not. I'll give him that he doesn't have a lot of depth at running back, especially.
yeah, so if you
So-
look at his running backs, you got David Johnson,
That's
and
it.
that's it. We
So
both
David-
have 2 players on IR. He's got Jerry Jeudy and Rashad Bateman, and I have Tyrod Taylor and Jarvis Landry. So
Yeah, he got a good draft.
yeah, he did
Yeah.
do very well in the draft. If Cordarrelle was playing this week, I'd feel pretty good about my chances. But starting J.D. McKissick, although the thing that gives me a little bit of hope is that I think this is going to be a high scoring game, so they're going to have to. Washington will have to pass the ball a whole lot. But so J.D. McKissick's going to see more time instead of Antonio Gibson. That kind of gives me hope. But other than that, it's going to be a tough week. And I'm basically praying Tyreek plays. So, what does it say on him? Is he... Yeah, no, okay, he's not expected to miss time. Okay, cool. Dope. But, yeah, that's what the Beerly Fantasy League's doing right now. Raw Talent currently in first place, followed by the Beerly Boss, a.k.a. me, in second. So, it should be interesting to watch. You guys got to turn it around. You guys are starting out a little bit rough. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams at 1-4, and then 2 teams at 5-0, 2 teams at 4-1, 2 teams at 3-2. So I mean, like, here's the thing that's positive, guys. I'm gonna give you some hope. Okay.
Somebody has to win these games. Win a 1-15 for each other.
At some point, someone's gonna have to win a game. Trevor, you've outscored 2 people in the league. in terms of total fantasy points this year. Carey is doing a little bit better. He's outscored 3 teams in the league.
Wahoo!
No, 4 teams. I'm sorry. I didn't give you enough credit.
Okay.
So, you just guys got to turn it around. Christian McCaffrey's going to be coming back soon.
Zach, I only have 2 points less than you.
Yeah, I know. But it's it's about
fancy luck
matchups.
for you.
It's about matchups. It's not about total points. It's about matchups. All right? And, I'm getting W's when I need W's and not taking any L's. So, but so I'm doing my best to try and cover up that tight end spot and hopefully get someone okay heading into next week. So that is all we have for tonight's podcast. Thank you all for listening. Do you guys have anything you want to add before we sign off?
Beerly Sports on Twitter, just like every week.
What
We
about
also just launched Beerly Hoops. We got at Beerly Hoops on Twitter. So if you want to talk some basketball, talk some hoops with us, we would love to do that. NBA season starting up soon. It's definitely going to be a great one this year. A lot of competitive teams. We are on TikTok. No videos up, but at Beerly Sports on TikTok. We're there. Also, a shout out to our we actually have an intern now. We have our very first intern, Luna, at NBA Trend on Twitter. So shout out to him.
All right. What about Instagram?
Yeah, we're on Instagram, but that's more at Carey's forte. I was gonna let him say something about that.
Follow on Insta at Beerly Sports.
Obviously, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, etc. You can also follow me personally on TikTok at SportsGuyZach. And without further ado, that's all we have for the show. Again, thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week.